Kevin Monroe leads the field to the green flag for round number 1 of the Radii Talladega 300. The outside line, led by Leslie Riggs, got a slightly better start than the inside did, but Monroe is going to have the preferred line going into the turn as he inches ahead of the 50 with the help of Toby Armstrong in the 82. But coming down the backstretch, Armstrong decides to have a go at the lead himself, but Armstrong is quickly going to lose it to Brenda Riggs. Coming to the line, Armstrong will lead the first lap of the race, but Riggs still has the edge on him. ARLA Thunder Trucks regular KASIE Campbell will be running a 4th Greaseburger car in select races this season, and that seems to have been a good decision by the team so far. She qualified very well and is running up in the top 5. And at the other end of the field, we have Ben Atkins making his return to ARLA competition behind the wheel of the REDSTONE Racing entry. This is a late model team that will be running the Superspeedway races this season. Atkins made his debut towards the end of the 2008 season, however he didn't do terribly well, so hopefully he'll have a better shot this time around. Caution 1 came out on lap number 4. Edwin Schwartzlowski drifts down into Bob Steffens. Steffens goes for a few rolls. Mumba Kumengo gets stuffed into the wall. Makoto Yamada, James West, Rip Tyler, and Gary D'Souza are all collected as well. Here's a view from Gary D'Souza's onboard camera. There's the wreck. He almost makes it through, but he gets clipped by Edwin Schwartzlowski and goes spinning into the wall. He slides down the track and onto the apron without getting hit by anybody else. And then his car tips over for some reason. The car probably could have been driven back to the pits, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Now here's the aerial shot. I don't know what Schwartzlowski was thinking because that was a very avoidable accident, and unfortunately a lot of innocent bystanders were caught up in it. Schwartzlowski and his spotter were called to the hauler, and rightfully so. CJ Cameron leads on the restart. He dipped his car to the low side. It looks like he might have done that so people don't try to get a nose on him. Cameron has the Greaseburger cars of KASIE Campbell and Jared Anderson right behind him. Lucas Hunter has not had the best of luck here in the ARLA Elite Series. He is in his 2nd season and his numbers have not been that stellar. But right now he has worked his way up into the top 5 and he's about to take 4th from KASIE Campbell. And whoa! Tyson Lautenschlager almost takes Jared Anderson out of the race. But Anderson keeps his car straight and avoids wiping out the whole field. Moments later, Hunter challenges Siju Dejao for the lead, and he will take it thanks to a push from Toby Armstrong. Bruce Wilkinson runs 3rd, trying to follow up on his 2nd place finish at St. Petersburg last week, and points leader Jacob Eichholz is in 4th. Robert Scott blows up in the early stages of the race. That team is running a customer Tutino, and that car has not exactly been that great in the TM Master Cup Series so far. Scott put up some very nice results after making his debut late last season, but he just hasn't had the same luck this year. Andy Pearson is going to have a go at the lead, taking it from his teammate Toby Armstrong. He hasn't had the greatest of starts to this season, finding himself lower in the point standings than he would like to be, but keep in mind he did get his first win of 2010 in the 3rd race, so we should definitely keep an eye on that 2 car today. Lapped cars are always a problem at these Superspeedway races, and today is going to be no exception as Gary D'Souza holds up the inside line. Jared Anderson was the leader, but now Tyson Lautenschlager sees an opportunity and blasts by the inside line to take the lead. We had a big stack up as the field tries to negotiate with Gary D'Souza. Scott Morales and Nick Howard get together. They get turned onto the apron, and as they come back up, they manage to not hit anybody. Some good car control by Morales and Howard prevents a very big accident. KASIE Campbell takes the lead from CJ Cameron, who gets left out to dry. Campbell gets a push from her teammate Jared Anderson. A little while later, James West gets a chance to hold up the field. Jared Anderson blasts by and opens up a big lead, but being that this is a super speedway race, this is going to come back to haunt him. Want to know how much Siju Dejao loves lapped cars? That much. Holden Roberts takes advantage of this little altercation and brings a few other cars on the high line with him, including Damian Snyder and KASIE Campbell. After getting by James West, the rest of the leaders had no problem catching Jared Anderson. Holden Roberts continues to run 2nd. This is easily his best performance ever. KASIE Campbell runs 3rd, Lucas Sweeney 4th, and CJ Cameron has worked his way back up into the top 5, with Scott Morales running in 6th, making a nice recovery from that near accident. Speaking of near accidents, Bruce Wilkinson turns James West into the 2 of Andy Pearson, who then shoves the 69 back up the track. I guess Pearson thought that West ran into him. Here's the onboard shot from James West. He gets turned. There's Pearson shoving him back up the track a little bit. No harm done to either car, though. Paul Lyons is going to be the next car to go a lap down. However, he doesn't have any damage. The Team Burr cars have just been lacking in the speed department this season, and you see Jared Anderson get away with the lead once again, leaving everyone else to deal with the 54. But the leaders would eventually dispatch the 54, and Holden Roberts again leads the charge to catch up to the 9 car. And then Roberts is going to take the lead from Jared Anderson with a push from Damian Snyder. Roberts has been struggling in that 165 car this season. In fact, Jaguar Racing as a whole has been struggling with mechanical problems and crashes all over the place. Maybe they can finally redeem themselves this week. But they're going to have to wait on that as Damian Snyder then challenges Roberts for the lead with Tyson Lautenschlager in tow. Snyder was in position to take his first ARLA victory at the rain race in St. Petersburg last week. However, he had some pretty heavy contact with the wall and lost a lot of time getting that repaired. Gary D'Souza gets in the way once again, holding up Scott Morales while he tries to challenge Damian Snyder for the lead. This grants Snyder a bit of a reprieve. And because of D'Souza, the lead pack gets really strung out. In fact, there are only 8 cars in the lead group right now, with Nico Petrov barely hanging on to the tail end of that group. Rachel Rainsford and Alay Gurel are running behind this group. However, they are only paired up with each other, and that is not going to help them catch up to the leaders. Like Paul Lyons, Jason Kruger in the Pie car fell off the pace without having any damage, and now it is his turn to go a lap down. However, you're going to notice that he's not actually being as much of a nuisance as some of the other lapped cars. He seems to be drafting with the leaders very well, but I imagine that they're going to find it very annoying to have to negotiate with him while battling for position with everybody else. James West is going to hold up traffic once again. Jared Anderson and Kevin Monroe escape with the lead. Tyson Lautenschlager in the outside lane looks like he wants to go, but he checks up for some reason. Lautenschlager and West are teammates at Carling Racing, by the way. Lautenschlager would eventually get away from West, run down the leaders, and then take the top spot from Jared Anderson. The lead group has now dwindled to 6 cars because of the lapped traffic, 5 if you exclude Jason Kruger. Nick Howard is at the head of another pack, running a bit further back from the leaders. This group has done quite a bit of battling amongst themselves, which has not done them any favors in trying to catch up. KASIE Campbell is the first to hit the pit lane to kick off green flag pit stops, and she pits all by herself. I guess she was anticipating someone going with her, but I guess not. So she's not going to have a drafting partner coming out of the pits. The lap after that, Kevin Monroe leads a group of cars into the pits, and you see several other cars following suit, and then the rest of the leaders come in on the next lap. When everything cycles out, we have 4 cars duking it out for the lead: Kevin Monroe, Rene Recarmier, Tyson Lautenschlager, and Damian Snyder. Recarmier, of course, got his first ARLA Elite Series victory in his second start last week at St. Petersburg. However, we're going to get a caution to bunch everything up. Nico Petrov gets turned head-on into the wall after Scott Morales and Nick Howard get together, and then Petrov is hit by Rachel Rainsford. Here's the shot from onboard Rachel Rainsford. There's the wreck. She commits to the bottom, but Nico Petrov is right there. Rainsford would continue, but Nico Petrov is going to drop out of the race. There would be a big stack-up under caution as Jason Bates runs into the back of Amy Harrison. Lucas Hunter comes in with a full head of steam. Brenda Riggs and Eric Jackson also get turned around. All 4 drivers and their spotters were called to the hauler because this was a very avoidable accident. A bit further up the track, Dale Underwood is going to run into the back of Toby Armstrong in the 82. Underwood and his spotter were called to the hauler for this little mishap, and then there's the bigger stack-up happening right behind him. Damian Snyder leads on the restart with a little over 5 laps to go. Paul Lyons is still off the lead lap. He restarted second, but it looks like he's trying to be gracious, moving up and out of the way of the inside cars. Lay Gurel and Tyson Lautenschlager are going to quickly dispatch him. Jared Anderson is blown up in the 9, and he almost pulls into Toby Armstrong in the 82. If they had wrecked, that would have ended the race, but thankfully they didn't. However, this is still a very unfortunate turn of events for Jared Anderson, who has not won a race in several years. There goes Lay Gurel for the lead on Damian Snyder. Gruel has not won a race since 2009. In fact, that was his only victory, but now he's got a chance to get back into victory lane with less than 5 laps to go. But you know how often the leader is a sitting duck at these superspeedway races. Coming to the white flag, Gruel still holds the lead. And right behind him, Lucas Sweeney has just taken second from CJ Cameron. Kasie Campbell runs third in the 910, in position to steal the win in her first start. Gruel still protecting that inside line coming off of turn 2. The caution lights are on. We have had an accident here on the final lap, but all eyes are on the lead pack. Coming off the final corner, Gruel is still on point. Lucas Sweeney pulls out, coming into the tri-oval. Gruel has absolutely no help on the outside, and at the line it's Sweeney stealing the win from Gruel at the last moment. With a big push from Kasie Campbell, Lucas Sweeney edges Gruel by half a car length at the line. Here is the incident that took place on the final lap. Scott Morales gets together with Earl McDermott, taking both cars into the wall. That is the third time Morales has made some kind of contact with another car today, and Dale Underwood comes flying in and slams into the 80. I'm not sure what was going on between Morales and McDermott, because it's very hard to just drift into somebody by accident like that. Running on board with Dale Underwood, and McDermott just slides down into his path. That was a very hard hit, but it doesn't look like that was a direct hit to the driver's door. Both McDermott and Underwood were okay, and Scott Morales was called to the hauler due to this third incident. Anyway, Leigh Gruel hangs on to second, but I'm sure he would have liked to be just a few feet further up. Kasie Campbell picks up a third-place finish in her first start after running up front for most of the day. And she's probably made a few friends along the way, too, because I'm sure Lucas Sweeney appreciated that push she gave him. Andy Pearson finishes fourth, which puts 2 Pearson-Sweeney cars up in the top 5. Nick Howard finishes fifth, giving Last Row Autosport their very first top 5 finish. Joseph Howard comes home 6th, making it another good finish for that 17 car. Toby Armstrong finishes 7th, which puts 3 Pearson-Sweeney cars up in the top 10. CJ Cameron, with only 3 starts to his name, gets his 3rd consecutive top 10 finish, which includes his victory in his debut at Texas. Rene Ricarmier, coming off of his win at St. Petersburg, follows that up with 9th, and then Holden Roberts gets his first career top 10 finish. We now go over to round number 2, where Jeremy West has taken the Smash Beer Pole Award. It's a nice surprise to see that 77 leading the field with the green flag. However, on lap number 2, DJ Daniels in the 78 gets a run on West and takes the lead from him. This is Grant Papp, who won the 1984 race at Rockingham because his friends bet him $5 that he couldn't do it. That was the only race he ever ran until today. Well, Michael Mondragal gets together with the 61, but Papp quickly pulls himself back together. As I was saying, Papp decided to enter this race because his friends bet him $10 that he couldn't do it again. He rented a car from Paul Sweeney to win at Rockingham, and so Pearson-Sweeney Motorsports gave him a ride for this race. The first caution came out at the beginning of lap 5 as Wesley Savage gets into a 4-wide situation. Something had to give, and it just happened to be Savage. Jeremy West and Chris Johans got a small piece of that as well. A bit further up the track, Taylor Brillen drifts down into Jason Teller, taking both cars into the wall. Ricky Navarro got shoved into the wall as well. Michael Madrigal leads on the restart. He had a top 10 run at Texas, but he crashed out at St. Petersburg, so now he is trying to redeem himself. However, a few moments later, here comes Libby Bell to challenge Madrigal for the lead with a push from her teammate Bixby Foote. Bell is also trying to redeem herself this week after having a bad run at St. Petersburg. Blake Camphausen is running a partial schedule this year. He made his first start at Texas, where he ran up front for most of the day, and today is looking to be the same. Camphausen has been one of the stronger of the part-time efforts this season, and I bet he's going to have a nice crowd of people at his garage stall begging to learn some of his secrets. Chris Johans goes a lap down after being involved in the lap 5 crash. He's actually running about 35 miles an hour slower than the leaders and can't even get out of third gear. Why that car is still out there is beyond me, because he's just creating a big wad of traffic right behind him. And big wads of traffic tend to result in accidents. Alex Carson and Jeremy West get together. Carson bounces up into the 24 of Libby Bell, sending her spinning. Here's another look at it. Something had to give in this big wad of cars, and Libby Bell was just an innocent victim in all of that. Shane Lake in the 155 does a great job of avoiding this accident. There is the wreck happening. Harry Enola gets a piece of that. Grant Papp got a piece of that too, but Shane Lake didn't. We did not catch Philip Borland diving into the pits on the previous restart, so that is why he is a lap down and pitting with Chris Johans. Packer Carroll leads on the restart, and right behind him is Henrietta Laverne, his former driver. Laverne shoots to the outside. I guess she sees an opportunity up there, but as we all know, the inside is the preferred line. Carroll gets back around Laverne with a push from Cameron Sweetwater, making her ARLA Elite Series debut. This has also been a good day for some of the other small teams. Chuck Bloomers and Cody Richards find themselves up in the top 5 at this point, and Bloomers has needed a run like this. The first 2 races have been nothing but trouble for him. Teammates Olivier Martinez and Joel Rodriguez are starting to crawl their way up towards the front as well. These two are among the several drivers who have struggled in the early part of the season, but today they're not showing that as they have hooked up and climbed into the top 10. Matas Kazimieras has been another new face running up front today. In 2010, Kazimieras won the ARLA Street Stocks East title in dominant fashion, winning 4 out of the 10 races. This landed him a ride with Kurt Walker's team for this season. However, Kazimieras has not shown that much speed in the first 2 races, though to be fair, his teammates Kurt Walker and Namimura have been struggling too. Chris Johans gets in the way once again. He still can't find any speed and is still running 35 miles an hour off the pace. This opens up the door for the cars on the outside line to get by. Joel Rodriguez escapes with the lead, with Bigsby Foot and Amy Patty running 2nd and 3rd respectively. The field got very spread out due to the 064s impeding. Nobody is racing side by side until we get much further back in the pack, and you see that this is because Johans is still holding up traffic. Wesley Savage and Derek Dudding are now going to get a chance to hold up traffic. Savage was involved in the lap 5 crash, and Dudding is just being slow as usual. However, Dudding is actually being a bit more gracious than Savage and moving up out of the way of the leaders. It didn't take the field that long to encounter Chris Johans once again. I am very surprised this car has not been called off the track yet, even though several drivers have been complaining about him throughout the race. The lead pack has already been cut down to 6 cars, and Johans' impeding is probably going to make that number even smaller. That is, if it didn't create an incident. Chuck Bloomers drifts down into Blake Camphausen. This sends Bloomers into the wall, and several cars go spinning as well. Harry Nola is involved, Wesley Savage. Derek Dudding goes barrel rolling. I think that was Packer Carroll that got into him, and you see Scott Dollitson there as well. And it was indeed Packer Carroll that got into Derek Dudding and sent him for a few rolls. Carroll would drop out of the race due to the damage he received, but his sacrifice puts Derek Dudding out of the field's misery. Here's another look at it. I'm not sure if Bloomers saw an opening, but it just wasn't there. Shane Lake got a piece of that. It looks like his luck has run out, and Savage would have probably gotten away from this wreck, but Camphausen was the one that turned Dudding into the 6. Chris Johans was called to the hauler for wadding up the field and contributing to this wreck. Amy Patty leads on the restart. But look at Dan McKay shooting to the outside. He actually inches ahead of the 73 going into the turn, but Ricky Flush hooks up with Amy Patty and pushes her back by the 10. It would have been very impressive if Dan McKay had been able to make that move stick. Salvatore Provenzano and Anthony Griffith have worked their way up into the top 5 as we approach the closing laps of the race. Griffith has not won a race since 2008, while Provenzano is in his first full year in ARLA. Ricky Flush makes the move for the lead on Amy Patty, and Provenzano goes with him, while Griffith is shuffled up into the outside. And then Griffith is bitten by mechanical problems. He holds up the outside line while trying to make his way to pit lane, and he almost comes across Namimura's front bumper. Griffith will go a lap down as he gets his problem fixed. Tough break for the 00 team as they find themselves up front in the closing laps. Grant Papp is marching his way back towards the front with a push from Allie Riggs. He got a little bit of damage in the lap 17 accident, but that 61 car is still flying, and he's still got a shot at winning this race and taking $10 from his friends. Amy Patty wrestles the lead away from Bixby Foot, and that is Michael Madrigal right behind her, who gives her a little bit of a tap coming through turn 1. Matas Kazimieras has climbed to 3rd, Todd Stater 4th, and look who's still coming, Grant Papp. He has made his way up into the top 5 now. Michael Madrigal, season opening, and he takes the lead from Amy Patty. Nobody goes with the 73, and she is going to drop like a rock through the field. Coming to the white flag, Grant Papp gets a run on Matas Kazimieras coming through the tri-oval. Kazimieras is left out to dry, and Papp will take the position without a problem. Michael Madrigal still hangs on to the lead, looking to hold off the field for his first career ARLA Elite Series victory. Allie Riggs is still glued to the rear of the 61, which has helped him so much in these closing laps. And then Riggs makes a move for 2nd. She leaves Grant Papp out to dry with less than half a lap to go. What would have been one of the biggest stories of the season comes to a grinding halt. Allie Riggs was very, very quick to dispatch the 61, which means that Michael Madrigal still has to worry about holding her off. Coming into the tri-oval, there goes the 19. Ricky Flush tucks in behind the 19, leaving Madrigal with no one to back him up. Coming to the line, Flush pulls out now, and Allie Riggs takes the win from Michael Madrigal at the last second. In an even closer margin of victory than we saw in round 1, Allie Riggs takes her first win since 2008. But what a tough break for Michael Madrigal and Grant Papp, who were both staring victory in the face until the last half lap. But that's the nature of superspeedway racing, where you are totally at the mercy of the cars behind you. Despite having the win taken from him on the last lap, Michael Madrigal still gets his best career finish. Ricky Flush ties his best finish of the season. He also finished 3rd at Texas. Joel Rodriguez finishes 4th, and you see him just barely beating out Blake Camphausen for the position. Camphausen does not have a whole lot of funding, but in both races he's run, he's been able to duke it out with the big boys. Amy Patty finishes 6th. It's another good run for Patty after a lackluster weekend at St. Petersburg. Bixby Foot could not get a 3rd consecutive pole today, however, he still has something to smile about after coming home 7th. In 8th place, we have Phil Summers, another recent graduate of the ARLA Street Stocks. He gets his first career top 10 finish. Matas Kazimieras, our other Street Stocks graduate, also gets his first career top 10 finish. And then Grant Papp manages to salvage a 10th place finish. It's amazing how many positions you can lose so quickly at this track. Let's have a look at our point standings, leaving the Radii Talladega 300. CJ Cameron has taken the lead from Jacob Eichholz, who now sits 17 points behind the leader. Joseph Howard and Damian Snyder are tied for 3rd. They are both 21 points behind Cameron. Kevin Monroe sits 5th. Andy Pearson has clawed his way up to 6th. Rene Recarmier 7th. Ricky Flush 8th. Bruce Wilkinson sits in 9th, and Nick Howard is 10th, 50 points behind CJ Cameron. It's a nice surprise to see him up there, considering that he failed to qualify for every single race he attempted last season. And now let's look at 11 through 20. With their victories today, Lucas Sweeney and Allie Riggs jump up to 11th and 12th respectively. Brenda Riggs sits in 13th. Mamba Kumengu and Leigh Gurel are tied for 14th, the tiebreaker being that Kumengu has a win and Gurel doesn't. Michael Madrigal is 16th, 59 points behind the leader. CJ Cameron, 17th. Jason Bates, 18th. Mike Howard, 19th, putting both last row Autosport cars in the top 20. And then Tyson Lautenschlager in 20th.